What's going on, Shawn?
What up? What up? What up, Jamaica? What's up, everyone? What's up,
Talk about it
y'all?
Tuesday.
Yeah, Talk About It Tuesday. You are tuned in to Talk About It Tuesday, brought to you by all of us. We're what, Jamaica? We say the quiet power out loud, hold system accountable, and build the world we actually want to live in. What's good, Jamaica? Where we going today? We short on tops, but what we doing? What we talking
Man,
about?
listen, because we're gonna talk about it Tuesday. What's going on is more bullshit. Last Tuesday we talked about some things. We're gonna talk about some more things today, including what's going on with Social Security, because how many millions of people rely on it. What is happening? Little conversation between the IRS and ICE, like make that make sense. And then there, of course, is how should children be treated in a court of law?
I
Let's
mean,
talk.
you would think fairly, right? You would
Let's
think the
talk
answer to
about
that is fairly, kind of rhetorical, but it's not. Unfortunately, state of affairs has us questioning all manner of things and how we deal with each other and organize in our communities and what the hell our politicians are actually doing with the power that is invested in them with our vote and with our say so. Remember, this thing only runs on belief,
it.
right? It
Mm-hmm.
only runs on our belief in the system and it being fair and working for us in some way. And I wonder what's going to happen when that belief fails. So let's where you want to start. We'll start at the
Now
top.
let's start with the biggest bullshit as far as Social Security, because there's more than 70 million Americans that rely on their Social Security check. But Trump, remember he's got his whole cabinet. Oh my God, I said his name out loud. So that president has his Secretary of Commerce that said, well, if my grandmother's Social Security check was missing, she wouldn't think nothing of it. It's only those fraudsters that are complaining. You got to watch out for the squeaky wheel. Those are the ones that, are fraudulent. I find that fucking hilarious because the number of millionaires and billionaires that complain all the damn time
Yeah.
by his logic.
Yeah, I wish we could show that video while we were talking right now, but how disconnected is that guy for that? Like my grandmother she would if she didn't get her check this month, she wouldn't say anything. Guess
No.
what? You know why she might not say anything? Because she's probably already wealthy and she's probably already has a wealthy family and is taken care of, or you're just fucking lying. Either way, something don't smell right about that story. Who the hell is going to sit down and not say nothing when the money's owed to them and they ain't getting paid? It doesn't make any sense. And to associate that with somehow complaining means you are a fraudster, it tells you everything. That framing tells you everything you need to know about what he's actually trying to say. Right?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen time and time again that this administration, as well as others, like let's be real, but this administration in particular is looking to destroy the social safety nets that are necessary for millions upon millions of people. Individuals that are receiving Social Security checks, it's already a problem that they're not getting a livable earning from
That's
their
right.
Social Security checks, right? That the cost of living adjustment is not matching the cost of living that is being raised every single year. And this fool is talking about the administration overall. We need to cut Social Security. They're closing offices. They're firing federal Social Security workers. Every Friday in the city of Schenectady, there's been a vigil outside of the Social Security office. Why? Because the offices are being closed, staff are being fired, and the workers themselves are standing up and saying, this is ridiculous. And they're also cutting access by phone. So if you're in a nursing home and you get a Social Security check, you can't call anymore. If this goes through, you have to go down to the office. My mother was in a nursing home. She was in a wheelchair, and damn sure to be able to take her to a Social Security office was a Herculean feat.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely ridiculous. And not everybody in the world that's living in a nursing home has a Jamaica Miles.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so we're talking about elderly individuals living Social Security check to Social Security check, but it's not a big deal if one check goes missing.
I mean,
What's
that's just
going on?
I mean, look, it seems to me another opportunity for them to justify some of the nonsense that they're trying to pull off. I think some of even with Doge, I mean, run by Elon Musk and its approach to um, addressing government efficiency is to me is whack in the first place. You know, he's looking at, like, they're saying Doge may do something around the lines of addressing a several $1 billion worth of waste that he may identify. Yet his company Tesla, right, gets almost somewhere from 20 to 50 billion dollars in subsidies every year. So if you really wanted to address waste, why not address it through Tesla and
Well,
the
not
money
just
that he's making?
that.
Yeah,
There also is the fact that the US military, right?
yeah. Well, we can't
No, no,
touch the
no.
military. That's
Yeah, but every single year they have unaccounted for funds.
hmm
Every single year. So you're talking about we should look for where there's waste and we should cut waste. It's the Department of Defense. Oh, I just glitched. It's the Department of Defense that actually has a huge amount of waste. And I haven't heard their name come up once. Not once did I hear the Department of Defense that there's tens of millions of dollars that they have unaccounted for. They don't know where it went. So if Doge or, the current president wanted to make sure we were efficient, we had efficient systems, you
yeah.
might want to look at the military, not Social Security.
I mean, I do not disagree, but I also think this isn't about government efficiency, it's about power, right? So when I look at it through that lens and where they're wanting to spend money versus where they don't, I mean, it becomes really clear because all you have to do is follow the money when you're looking for what person's interests are, or where their heart is, right? If they're cutting the funds to all these other programs and things that actually support the people, clearly that's not where their heart is. Clearly, their heart is with power and bringing more to it, more of it to themselves, in my opinion.
And Dr. Sahib just brought up, Social Security is something that people pay into. They work and a
That's
part
right.
of your check goes into Social
Right.
Security. Um, and that brings us to our next point is that the IRS is looking to make a deal with immigration, with ICE, to give them access to IRS records to help them figure out where the undocumented workers are. So, and this was brought up by my, favorite person in New York City, that the argument was immigrants don't pay taxes and they're just sucking us dry, right? Like they're a drain on our society. If they were a drain on our society and they're not paying taxes, then how would the IRS have records that you could use to identify where those undocumented workers are? Because they're paying
Paying
the
taxes.
system. They're paying taxes and
Yeah.
cannot get benefits,
Yeah.
right?
Or representation.
Can't vote, not getting benefits, but they're paying taxes. And now you want to use the tax system to deport people who are paying taxes, while yet again, the wealthy among us are not paying taxes and they're staying here rent free.
Once again, it's another example of it not being about efficiency. It's not being about any of the things that they're talking about. It's really about them having more power, more wealth, and more ability just simply to control the narrative and what it means for this country to exist. It's not a democracy anymore, Jamaica. I think one thing I talked about earlier today, real quick, just to bring it up, we were talking about how we're sliding into totalitarianism and fascism, and how this version of it is slightly different than the versions that have come before, right? So, and I'm not this. So when I say this, please understand, anybody paying attention, that I am not bigging up any of the names I'm about to mention. I'm only setting a distinction. For a Hitler or a Mussolini or Franco or any of the dictators of known in the past, there was this strongman approach with these extreme values and principles that they were able to state out front, right, in their regimes, right, in taking power, whether it was Hitler, Franco, Mussolini, or whatever, even Putin to some extent. What we have right now in a Donald Trump is a useful idiot. He goes wherever the wind blows. He goes wherever the wind blows and whatever power he think he can gain from a particular situation. It's not necessarily about race on every front. It's not necessarily about culture or religion or any of that. We live in the most capitalist society in the world today, and basically he's at the whims and control of all the minions around him that are looking to seize power in any way that they can, and he is just a happy idiot to help them along. And I'm not. That doesn't mean he isn't responsible or accountable for all the bullshit that he's done, but he also doesn't have any real principles that he stands on. He could say one thing today in favor of whoever this person in power is that he's trying to court favor, and say something very different tomorrow, depending on the way the wind is blowing. So it's just one of those very. It's a time that is not exactly similar to times past, but it doesn't mean it isn't as dangerous as the times before.
And I think his principle really is that he's just selfish. He's a narcissist that really only cares about himself, and does whatever is necessary to make sure that his name is in lights. The same way that he will use the IRS as a tool to say, look at these undocumented people that I removed from this country. Distraction, right? Because the
Yeah.
wizard, there's the curtain is revealed. We know what's going on. And just continue to do what he's doing for his own benefit. The same way his dealings with Netanyahu and the state of Israel is for his own benefit. He wants Gaza to be Trump central. He literally looks for ways to idolize himself. By the way, he should never sell a Bible because he should catch on fire anytime he touches one. He literally should, because
Yeah.
he wants people to worship him. He likes to be idolized. And he uses these distractions to say, no, these lesser people are the problem. It really is quite biblical. Not that I'm going to get into it today, but it
Why
really,
not?
nope, not going to talk about it this Tuesday, but it's coming, y'all. It might be on my personal page on a Wake Up Wednesday. I don't know. But Trump is doing what Trump needs to do to make sure that his name is said over and over again. And I said it twice. If I say it one more time, he may appear. So this is what we're facing. And the fact that he will continue to target the least of us is such the American way. And his most recent victims are children.
Yeah.
Children. So the administration has decided that immigrant children no longer get representation, that they are to represent themselves. Some of these are children that when they sit in the chair, their feet dangle, they can't even touch the ground, and they are responsible for representing themselves in immigration court. So they've gone through all types of trauma, coming from wherever they came from, being separated from their parents, which is something that the current administration during their last administration was really proud of. Real concerns around child trafficking, but we'll not go there today. A child defending themselves in a court of law to determine whether or not they should receive asylum. Roman says hello to everyone.
No, I'm not saying hello.
So, Shawn, is that what we should do for children? Should children be representing themselves in court? Does that
No,
seem
I'm
very
actually
American?
no, absolutely not. And I was actually waiting to chime in a little bit, because what you're talking about, for people that are not fully understanding the idea of representation, we're talking about legal representation for migrant children that are in court. We all have, as citizens or residents of the country, we have a right to legal representation when facing, or a due process when facing any criminal situation that we may be involved in or accused of, charged with, etc., alleged against us. The children of that are migrants that are sent here, or that are found without their parents, or any other adult or any other guardian with them, for many years had a right to representation based on executive order. Trump is saying that's no longer the case, right? So having representation, having right to representation, meaning that representation is paid for by the government, and you have someone at your side who is supposed to be, and that's, we can get into all that, what that really means, but supposed to be able to represent your best interests in any legal proceeding. And that, unfortunately, is not the case anymore with Trump's move to remove representation for children that are found without guardians, without parents, crossing the border or in the states already.
Or were taken from their parents.
Yeah.
Let us not forget that there are children that come into this country with their parents and then are forcibly removed, the same way that this land was forged by indigenous children being removed from their parents. Again, Trump is simply using the American playbook.
Yeah.
This is what we've done. This is a colonized land that is living its truth,
Yeah.
being very transparent about who this country is, and so bold to say, fuck you to everybody else if you don't like it. You supported us when we pretended like we weren't doing it. You're going to support us when we're really blatant about it.
Yeah, and in 2023, Jamaica, just to add a bit of facts to this, I was just looking this up while you were talking. Nearly 60% of unaccompanied minors had representation in court. Like, it already was a woeful system as it was, right? 60%, nearly 60% had representation, but they said it was a shortage of attorneys, right, that were either willing to represent or able to represent for any other reason. That's only 60% of the minors represented. That's 26,000 migrants, children that were able to be represented at the time, and he just gutted that.
Said no.
Right. So imagine what that would mean for proceedings and the plight of the children, that some who have been trafficked, like you were saying, some kidnapped, some facing unimaginable circumstances, now facing a system where they no longer have a right to any representation. I mean, it's just another one of those disgusting things that we're seeing from this administration and the many of his willing minions and participants in the tyranny that is overcoming all of us.
Which is exactly what they want for all of us, except for those that have privilege and or wealth, which usually they go hand in hand, because one of the fights in New York is to roll back the reforms that were made about discovery and bail and all of those things that give equity to an unjust system and disproportionately impacts Black folks and other marginalized groups, right? So again, when folks are, and I always want to bring it back to New York, because I think people look at the federal government and say, oh, well, that's happening at the federal level, but at least I live in New York. Fuck New York. Like, seriously, we are not here in some place. Yep, Roman's gonna say that later. We're not living in some state that is like free and living its best life and everyone's safe here. Just because we're better than Florida doesn't mean much. That part. That part.
Yeah, I mean, it's more of the mirage, right, that we've gotten used to believing. All right, even in talking about the history of the country and the North and the South and the Civil War, like, it's told in a way, in a narrative that kind of produces this binary of like, hey, these were the bad guys, these were the good guys, and in all actuality, it was fucked up in both places, just different forms of it, right? The oppression was different, the racism was slightly different, but death was very real in both places, and difficulties were very real in both places, and though it was a different type of burden, it was a burden still. And I think that this idea that New York is this progressive landscape of all the things that we think about is just untrue. Literally, if you look at the map of if you look up in that map of New York and you cut it up between Democrats and Republicans, I mean, like, they own most of the state. Most of the geographic landmass of the state
Right.
is owned by the Republicans. New York City and some of the municipalities represented in the state is what keeps this place democratic, which is what it is. Democratic doesn't necessarily mean progressive, right? We know that already.
Right.
But at the
Right.
same time, it's on a very, very, very thin line. We had a Republican governor for 12 years, almost had a Republican governor in his last race with Governor Hochul. She almost lost that race. You see
Mhm.
you see
Mhm.
what what that guy put out to try to rally voters to his cause. It was a close race, and so anyway, to your point, no, we're not this progressive beacon, the light and halls the world. That's not who we are.
No.
We just have a narrative that tells us who we are. We got the
And
Statue of Liberty, which is actually closer to Jersey. I mean, I'm getting into the weeds here a little bit, but even the Statue of Liberty is a false narrative.
well, besides the fact that the Statue of Liberty, there's a history behind that lots of folks don't talk about and don't know, that I only recently learned about, that it wasn't supposed to be a tablet in her arms. It was supposed to be broken chains. And instead, those chains are still at her feet, but no one talks about it.
They were laid at her feet so that to be noticeable.
Yes, because it had to be an argument about what is the narrative. You can't acknowledge it. You can't be accountable, United States of America. It's
and don't take our word for it. Look this up. We ain't bullshitting. We don't come up here. This is Talk About It Tuesday, so we talk a little bit loose. Maybe usually do. But yeah, look that up.
Go ahead, look it up, because again, if we really knew our history, if we understood the beginnings and the full facts of it, to then lay it side by side with where we are now, Democrats ain't saving us, Republicans ain't saving us, no political party is saving us, no political party has ever saved us. It has always been the people. And we talked about that on Sunday. Right?
That's
it wasn't even talk about it Sunday, but we talked about it on Sunday. Shawn, tell the people what's wrong with leadership while we're talking about it on Tuesday.
What's wrong with leadership? The same leadership that we're looking at across the board, whether it's in federal, state, or local, is responsible for the place that we are in right now today. And not just the leadership in government bodies, but the leadership in these grassroots organizations, these nonprofit groups, etc. What are we doing, right? Or what are we doing that landed us in this place that we are? What we do is mimic too often the same structures and systems that we claim we're against, right? Motherfucker brought up, person made up a really dope something, made a connection to something that I hadn't been thinking about. A few things, but I'll just talk about this one. He's like, when George Floyd was murdered, right? Trayvon Martin was murdered, Tamir Rice, and so many others, Mike Brown, Philando Castile, Breonna Taylor, Nina Pop. The list is so goddamn long, right? So when these things happen, and there's this great mobilization or outcry from the community, some of these grassroots and nonprofit organizations swoop in the same way disaster capitalists swoop in during a disaster in any community, right? To not actually to help, but to benefit off of the disaster and benefit off of that tragedy versus actually changing with the community the systems and structures that are so harmful to us, right? We don't ever put down real grassroots or foundations to move us forward, because you got everybody trying to make money or a dollar or be out front in this movement as opposed to really doing the thing. So it was a really, he's like, yeah, he said it's a form of disaster capitalism, right? Sliding in Robert Brooks's murder, people are sliding in like the disaster capitalists to take an opportunity with this murder to benefit themselves or to push forward their cause versus actually addressing the real issues at play in the foundation and or building a foundation, that would benefit us all. And that's a part of why we end up, and this is something that's been frustrating more and more, Jamaica. I've been telling you, and I've been feeling like we're spinning our wheels and we're having these empty conversations and we're hearing the same people give these, preach to the choir about the same shit, but yet nothing really changes. You got to ask yourself why.
Well, because the question is, one of those old sayings that grandparents say, are you going to walk the walk or are you just going to talk the talk? There are plenty of folks that can say shit, but who's doing something about it? Who's actually going out in communities and having conversations besides me and you? Like, who else is actually going out there, having conversations, educating them about, their power? Like, who's doing it? There are plenty of talking heads, plenty of talking heads that don't care about us. That many of them get elected to office. There's a few, right? Like yesterday, I said, all these politicians, it was a super generalization, not yesterday. I say it a lot. There are some elected officials that give a damn and really try. As someone who sits in the minority of a elected body, I know how difficult it is to be the one voice when everyone else is against you. They disagree with you. Like, I was the only person that voted against cops in schools, and everyone else voted for it. I was the only person that voted against weapons detection, and everyone else voted for it. But here's the thing, and we talked about this briefly. I know we got to wrap up soon, though, is we still need that one dissenting voice. To the elected officials that say, I don't know if we have the votes, or I know this isn't going to pass. You're supposed to say that shit anyways. You're supposed to say that shit anyways.
Yeah.
You don't say it only if it's going to pass, because if that was the case, I wouldn't have shit to say ever sitting on a school board.
I mean, and you see what we get for it, though, right? When we go along to get along, what we get, they fuck us over anyway, right? When we go along to get along, they do what they do, and we end up holding the bag or holding water for somebody else or whatever the case may be. And we seen it, your favorite line, time and time again. And like, here we are, here we sit. So it's, to me, and in reality, I just feel like it's a time for a shift in leadership across the board. I support that. Someone want to take my spot? Go ahead. Reach out. You know what I'm saying? Lay it out. I ain't holding on to this shit. You know what I mean? If we got some young people that want to do this thing, that want to have their voice heard, want to get in the community, I'm with it. Or else you want me to support? You want me to support you in doing, like, having, your initiative and the change you want in the community? Reach out. Make it happen. But at the same time, I'm being very serious, though, when I'm talking about new leadership. Because I know that we're an iteration of this fight that's so very old, right? Generations old. Kwame Ture, I was just listening to a lecture of his from back in the day. He was like, yo, our generation is no more important than the generation that came before us. My father's generation, no more important than my grandfather's generation. We've all had a role to play in this fight, and we're playing our role right now. At the same time, as we're seeing our elders, get older and older and older and still holding on to power, you got to ask yourself, what did you do all these years you've been in power? Maybe you made some things happen.
Maybe.
And this isn't about being ageist and saying because you're old you can't do nothing. But if you're not developing new leaders, and there ain't no transition plan, that's a problem. Because remember, Jamaica, I said this the other day, right? I was like, what we're fighting for today won't change today, right? May not change today, may not change tomorrow, meaning literally tomorrow or this week. But the changes we're fighting for will have an impact on the next generation and what they have to deal with. So the next Robert Brooks is maybe one of those babies we seen in the park the other day, right? While we were at the rally, right? The next Ahmaud Arbery, maybe not even born yet. You know what I mean? So these are the children is what we're fighting for. The future is what we're fighting for. And that's why it's important to develop youth leadership now and be intentional about that and be willing to pass the baton. But we don't see enough leaders doing that because they love holding on to power. And that's in all realms, it feels like. Right?
And the
politics.
The next youth organizing workshop is April 26th for all of us. If you go to our Facebook, our Instagram, if you go to our link tree, you can find the information for young people to come together. And it's because the intergenerationalness is absolutely necessary. And I said this, I say this a lot. I'm 50 years old.
My mom is in half a century.
I'm ready to sit down, but I can't because there's nobody here yet.
We still got. First of all, let me be clear. We still have a role. I'm just saying.
No, absolutely. No, there's some institutional knowledge. There's some levels of understanding, and we're radical as fuck. So let's be real. Like we are very radical individuals that are willing to push forward in ways that other folks don't.
My pops just hit me and said, "Right on." He must be watching. Pops, put it in the chat.
Like he might not know how to put it in the chat.
As a reminder to everyone that's watching this now, watching this later, click like,
share,
try to share it,
tag your friends,
so we can get on the algorithm and reach more people. Man, we'll extend our platforms to other.
Blue Sky. We're now on Blue Sky.
Oh, we are on Blue Sky. Cool. Y'all know about Blue Sky. Join Blue Sky. That's some interesting stuff.
Yes. love, share, follow on
That's it.
Facebook. You can like and you can follow,
it.
and you should. You can in the comments put at followers so that your followers then come see what the hell you were looking at. There's lots of ways to share this information because it takes who?
All of us.
All of us. And
All
that's
right,
it.
y'all. Talk about it, Roman.
All
All
of
right, everyone. Look, this has been another Talk About It
Yeah,
Tuesday, brought to you by all of us. You heard Jamaica. Click like and share. Click love and share. Subscribe. All the things on all our platforms. Much love. Just having conversation with y'all. We really care about this stuff. Don't get it twisted. We ain't up here for no reason. So much love. Have a great rest of y'all night. Great rest of y'all week. See you on Focus Friday. Peace.
On Focus Friday, 7 p.m., y'all. We'll be back.
All right.